Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So the month of June is officially upon us, which means unbelievably that half of 2022 is already over. Yes, the first half of the year has been launched into the past, launched into the abyss, and we are now looking forward to the second half of the year. And I can't believe how quickly everything has passed. It feels like it was just yesterday that we were celebrating the new year. But yes, we are almost officially done with 2022 already. And in light of this, I thought it'd be a fun idea to go through my thoughts on all of the movies and TV shows that I have been watching this year so far. Now, this is kind of like a special edition of my What I've Been Watching series, which I usually do every few months to kind of catch up on all of the TV shows and films that I've been watching over the past few months that I haven't had a chance to review on my channel. But here we're going to be talking about a bunch more stuff, so I'm not going to be able to go into much detail for every single movie and TV show, even though these videos are going to be in two parts, with one video focusing on movies and the other, this video, focusing on TV shows. But yeah, this is going to be a quick fire situation, so we're just going to be listing off our thoughts on all of the movies and TV shows that have come out this year. And as always, if you guys have checked out any of the TV shows here on this list, I will be so happy to hear your thoughts, so please go ahead and share them down in the comments. And also, if you have any recommendations for great shows that came out in 2022, I would love to hear your recommendations as well, especially because I love doing best of videos at the end of the year, and I like being able to consume as much media as possible for those videos. So if you have any recommendations for what I may have missed, I would love to hear them. And of course, before we get into all of the good stuff, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Now, without further ado, let's get into the half-year review TV show edition. So first of all, we're going to start off with the good. We're going to start off with the creme de la creme that has been offered to us in 2022 so far. The shows that really stood out to me, the shows that really entertained me or shocked me or made me laugh or made me cry, like the shows that I thought did a good job of being excellent, of being superb. Now, here's the thing. Here in 2022, we have an abundance of TV shows. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed, but this year in particular, it feels like I'm drowning in content. It feels like I'm drowning in media, but somehow it also feels like everything that's coming out is just so meh. It feels like we're drowning in like porridge. It feels like it feels like all of these TV shows, like we have so much of it. We have so much porridge, okay? Yum, 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 you know, lovely porridge, but it's now become such an abundant resource of entertainment that it just feels overwhelming, and it honestly a lot of times doesn't even feel exciting anymore. Like I'm just not as excited as I was when I used to see these new shows come out, and I used to be really curious about the premise and the cast and, you know, the worlds that they were creating. It feels like now, because we've just got so much of these new shows every single day, these streaming platforms in particular are pumping out hours upon hours of content, that it's hard for me to get really excited, and it's hard for me to even enjoy the shows that I do end up watching. I will be surprised by them at the very least. So I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I do feel like there are a lot of shows, about like, I don't know, 70% of them that are good shows, but they don't blow my mind anymore, and they just feel a bit mid. Like there's a lot of mid there's a lot of mediocrity going on here, and so to have a nice handful of great shows that I feel really did stand out means all the more. So first of all, I want to start off with some of the shows that I have either already done reviews on or will be doing reviews of on my channel, and this is just going to be listing them off really quickly because I don't need to dive into them in any detail whatsoever in this video. But first one up is the one that's on air as we speak, and the episodes are being dropped weekly. It's The Boys. The Boys are back. Yep, the boys are back. The boys are back, guys. The boys are back and giving us, they're giving us everything. Yep, they're giving us, can I just say, Anthony Starr as Homelander, stop this now. Give this man an Oscar now. Give this man an Oscar now. I would say that Anthony Starr as Homelander is like peak casting decision. He is incredible, and what is happening with the character this season is insane. I can't wait to dive into it in my review of season 3 of The Boys, but let me just tell you right now for free that Anthony Starr is amazing. Anthony Starr is absolutely incredible, and to see the escalation of the antics of Homelander is both bone-chilling, horrifying, terrifying, but also so satisfying. And just I'm left in awe of this guy's performance, of his portrayal of this just insidious, horrible character. Well done. Well done. That's how you do. That's how you create an iconic character, okay? They're few and far between these days, but this guy, he really stands out from the crowd. The next show that I feel like really had its time in the sun was Bridgerton. Bridgerton season 2 was everything that I wanted and more. So sorry to the other girlies, okay? But Bridgerton season 2 did everything that the Gilded Age could not. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to you Gilded Age fans. But I think Bridgerton season 2 was superior, and it's not because of the historical accuracy. Please, we know what we're getting into when we watch Bridgerton. It's not historical accuracy, boo. Okay, it's because of the drama. It's because of the flavor. It's because of the romance. And that's something that the Gilded Age never had. It never quite understood the assignment when it came to giving us drama that we can actually be drawn into. The drama in the Gilded Age is basically a bunch of rich white women fighting over power of, you know, their elite class. And honestly, I wasn't enraptured by that. I didn't care about that. I don't care if it was a realistic take on what would happen during this era amongst the upper classes, you know, amongst the elites in America. I don't care about any of that. For me, that storyline wasn't enough to draw me in. It wasn't enough to get me invested in those characters. So even though I was intrigued by the world that they created, I just didn't care enough about the characters because the stakes for me were meaningless. But in the case of Bridgerton, Bridgerton gave us the ultimate enemies to lovers storyline. We love to see it. We love to see it. All the girlies are going to be trying to copy this formula for decades to come, but Bridgerton did it immaculately. And another immaculate love story that Netflix gave us this year was Heartstopper. I love Heartstopper as well. Again, another immaculately told love story, but just a completely different context with completely different characters at its core. But overall, I was so happy to see it be so popular amongst people, especially on social media, getting all of that love and praise that it absolutely deserved. It's really encouraging, and I do hear that they're working on season 2 already, so like, well done Netflix. Well done for giving us exactly what we want. Another Netflix success story would have to be Stranger Things season 4. Stranger Things season 4 was incredible. Stranger Things season 4 managed to be one of the best seasons of the show, a show that is already so incredibly popular. Wow, so amazing. So amazing, and I'm so intrigued to see how they finish off this season. I did find out later, after having done my review, that the second part of this season is actually only going to be about 2 episodes, and it's going to be dropping in July because of some CG issues. I had initially suspected that they wanted to do the kind of 2-part thing that they did with Ozark and Money Heist, just to get people subscribed for 2 months instead of 1, but it turns out it may be because of the CG, which I think was done very, very well in the first part of season 4, and I hope that continues for the second part as well. Okay, so let's keep this ball rolling and run through some other great highlights of 2022 so far. So next up, we have an offering from Disney Plus Marvel with Moon Knight. Excellent series, and Oscar Isaac was superb in every single episode, portraying several different characters that became beloved by fans immediately. And then of course we have Atlanta season 3, which I had immense joy from. I loved these episodes, especially my top 5 episodes, and I did in fact rank all of the episodes of Atlanta season 3 in my review, which you can check out. We also unfortunately got the final season of Peaky Blinders this year, which broke my heart. I'm still so upset. Peaky Blinders being one of the best shows I've ever watched, period. Like literally just one of the, sorry Sorry, one of the best shows ever, and it's officially done. And I do believe that the final season did drop on Netflix in the US this past weekend, so you can go ahead and check out the final season of Peaky Blinders if you are in the US, and go ahead and check out my review of it on my channel as well. But yeah, I'm really heartbroken to see that the series is done, but what a phenomenal ending. And another series that may also be done, unfortunately, is Naughts and Crosses. We did get the second season of Naughts and Crosses, which was not even advertised. Like, it was just handled so horribly, and even though I do think that the second season was inferior to the first, the book, you know, the source material holds such a special place in my heart that I did still have a level of enjoyment watching the second season as well, and I was still enraptured by the story, even though I did have issues with how it was portrayed in this series. Okay, so now let's get into some good shows that I haven't mentioned here on this channel that I have also been checking out. A lot of them from HBO Max, actually, because a lot of these HBO Max series have been popping in and out of various platforms months after they aired in the US on the actual HBO Max site. So first one up, guys, Our Flag Means Death. Oh, we've hit a gem. We've hit the jackpot. Yeah. We've hit the guy. Oh my goodness. No, listen. First of all, happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, guys. Secondly, this show is literally the best thing ever. I'm literally so sorry. I've watched it twice. I've watched it two times. I've watched this show. It's the best thing. Like, oh, stop it now. First of all, the show stars Rhys Darby and Taika Waititi, and I don't want to give anything away. If you want to go into Our Flag Means Death blind and not know anything, then this is spoiler territory, just to give you a heads up, okay? So just skip forward a couple of minutes. Okay, so now let me reveal everything. So they played two pirates, and Taika Waititi notably plays Blackbeard himself, the iconic Blackbeard, and they end up falling in love with each other. Yeah, it's the gay pirate love story. I love this. I loved it. First of all, the series is hilarious, guys. Listen, we know Taika Waititi's a genius when it comes to comedy, when it comes to his quirky style of comedy in particular, and he works with some incredible people like Jermaine Clement and now Rhys Darby, but I didn't expect how much I would come to love this series, especially upon the second viewing. The first time I watched it, I wasn't particularly impressed by the first couple of episodes. If you feel the same way, then just keep going, keep watching, keep pushing on, and then at about episode 3 or 4, you'll come to realize that it's the best thing ever. It's literally the best thing that's ever aired on television. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking out Our Flag Means Death. It was one of the highlights of the year on television for sure, and like I said, I've watched it 2 times over, and I cannot wait for season 2, which was announced last week. Oh yes. I keep winning. Next up, we have another HBO Max comedy with Hacks. Now, I had intended on watching Hacks last year when I saw Jean Smart get a bunch of nominations for her role in this show, but I couldn't find it anywhere here in the UK. So it eventually did land on Amazon Prime, which I was really excited about, and I ended up watching the entire season in like 2 days. Literally 2 days, and it was delightful. Like, I really enjoyed Hacks. I think Jean Smart is amazing in it, and I completely understand why she got so many nominations in the comedic categories, because she was great there. But even just the premise itself and being able to dive into the character that Jean Smart portrays, Deborah Vance, who's this you know, elder comedy act, and she's been doing this for decades, but she's kind of in a slump now, and she finds this younger writer who can kind of invigorate her material, bring it into the 21st century, and kind of challenge her a little bit, because she has been so comfortably successful in Vegas for so long. And like, chaos ensues. Chaos ensues, and you have these two smart women at the center of this comedy show. I think the premise was absolutely done justice. I think the banter that the two characters have together is done really well, and they do have some funny jokes in there. I'm not the biggest fan of stand-up comedy myself, if I'm gonna be honest. I know it sounds weird, like I like comedy obviously, but stand-up comedy to me isn't always my favorite. There are some comedians that really just hit the nail on the head for me, and others that I'm just looking at like, Like, do I have an appointment? Like, do I have somewhere to be? You know, it's not really clicking, okay? But when it comes to the scenes in the show, and of course you do have some actual stand-up comedy scenes here, I do think for the most part they did a great job with the writing as well to really make it funny. So yeah, I really enjoyed season 1 of Hacks, and I did recently finish watching season 2 as well, which was also on Amazon Prime. I do think that the first season kind of had that shock value that allowed me to be more surprised by the show, as is always the case for a first season, whereas the second season was more like, okay, I understand what these characters are now, what the show is now. I don't think it was quite as mind-blowing as the first season. And also I did have an issue, small spoilers for season 1 of Hacks, but at the beginning of season 2 it's established that Deborah wants to sue Ava over what she did at the end of season 1, where she went to the producers of a TV show that are going to be doing a show about someone like Deborah, and she gave them a bunch of like personal and incriminating information that made her look really, really bad. And of course she felt bad by the end. She revealed it all to Deborah, who was understandably upset, but now she is going to sue her. And I just feel like it's tough to sympathize with the character of Deborah at the beginning of season 2 of the show, knowing that this kind of underlying threat looms where she is going to be taking Ava to court. Like, even when they make the effort to bring these characters together again over Ava's father's ashes, I didn't feel like the relationship could ever really be fully repaired until Deborah dropped the lawsuit, because there was such an imbalance of power, and overall it just didn't feel like that friendship could be genuine until that happened. So even though they tried to brush off the lawsuit as not being a big deal because Deborah's rich and she sees it as like a hobby or whatever, I still think that until that happened, we didn't really get a full reconciliation of the series of events of season 1. And next up we have another HBO series. This time it's not particularly comedic, but it is truly fantastic, and that was the limited series Julia. I love this show. I loved this show. Oh my goodness, Julia was superb. Julia is the limited series that focuses on Julia Child, who was this kind of cooking TV personality. She was a chef and she was a trailblazer because she was the first TV presenter to do these kind of cooking shows, really demonstrating to the audience how you would go about preparing the entire meal, and also the fact that she was a woman, you know, cooking professionally. And obviously during this period in particular, there were all these different stereotypes and expectations for women to be cooking in the kitchen and, you know, taking care of the household in that way. But to be a professional chef, to be a cook who was considered in high regard because they had that kind of qualification and experience, that was a whole different ball game, and that was something that was only expected of men to be able to accomplish. But here we have Julia Childs kind of combining these two things to create this cooking show that mostly women could follow along to, and also perfect techniques that seem so far out of reach for the typical average suburban wife. I feel like that was such an interesting story that they told there. They also touched upon some of the issues that this raised, you know, having Julia Child be this female personality that was promoting the stereotype in some ways. They didn't really touch upon that too much because it is supposed to be a show celebrating her accomplishments, but I do think it was interesting that it was raised at the very least. And overall I would say that this was a brilliant series. I think Sarah Lancaster, who portrays Julia Child here, was absolutely superb, and I hope to hear her as part of the Emmy conversation. I hope everyone remembers how incredible she was on this show, because she truly deserves an Emmy nomination for sure. And I have to say, I do find it interesting how we do see a lot of these TV girlies surpassing the movie girlies when it comes to their portrayals of certain characters. This isn't the first time this has happened, because we've seen this in the past few years in particular, especially as television has gotten grander and just far more prestigious. We see these actors on TV being able to just give incredible performances that surpass the portrayals of the same characters that we would have seen in films. Take for instance instance, Gillian Anderson's portrayal of Margaret Thatcher versus, Meryl Streep's portrayal of the same character. Meryl Streep won an Oscar for her portrayal of Margaret Thatcher, but I personally think that Gillian Anderson was better. I personally think that Gillian Anderson actually knocked it out of the park and she was better. Speaking of The Crown, we also have Emma Corrin giving a note-perfect portrayal of Princess Diana versus Kristen Stewart's portrayal of the character, which was also Oscar nominated, but I feel was far inferior to what we got in The Crown. And since we're on the Crown theme, let's talk about Claire Foy. Let's talk about Olivia Colman portraying Queen Elizabeth II perfectly, and I feel in a far superior manner to Helen Mirren's portrayal of the same character, and she also ended up winning an Oscar for her portrayal in that film. So I do think it's interesting to see how we're getting these incredible performances on television, a medium that was traditionally seen as inferior to films. I just think that what actresses like Sarah Lancaster and Olivia Colman and Claire Foy are showing time and time again is that it is possible to have these amazing, character defining performances on television, especially when you have incredible writing and also when you benefit from long-term storytelling, which I feel like television always has the advantage of. You can only do so much in a feature film that's 2 hours long versus a TV show which basically has mini feature films for each episode. And yes, going back to Julia, I would definitely say that Sarah Lancaster joins the ranks of actresses who did a great job portraying the same character as a movie star, like in this case Meryl Streep. Okay, so now we're going to diverge from HBO Max and we're going to talk about one of my favorite comedies of the year. Aside from Our Flag Means Death, this was also at the very, very top in the genre, and that was Abbott Elementary. Guys, Abbott Elementary is genius. So Abbott Elementary was, I believe, created and written by Quinta Brunson, who just inexplicably used to work in BuzzFeed. She was one of my favorite personalities in BuzzFeed. I used to love her videos and the videos that she had with the other girlies. But look at the come up. Now she has an ABC series that is truly one of the highlights of the whole roster. Easily the highlight of the whole roster, I have to say. Abbott Elementary was such a welcome addition to my roster of TV shows. I enjoyed it from week to week. I did see that it recently dropped on Disney Plus, which is wonderful, and I can't wait to see the second season of the show as well. The fact that you have a comedy series that focuses on an elementary school, or as we would say here in the UK, a primary school, but not only is it a primary school, it also has, majority Black or POC students, and it highlights the issues surrounding the education system in America, and also things like funding and being able to provide sufficient resources to these students so they can learn, so they can grow in this crucial moment in their educational career. But at the same time, it does it in a comedic way so that you're invested in these stories, you're invested in these characters, and you can have a fun time watching the show whilst also learning a bunch about very serious issues that underpin the American educational system. And the fact that a lot of the students at the school are Black or POC highlights the fact that a lot of the systematic issues in the educational system in America disproportionately affect those groups. And another kind of meta side effect of having this kind of population in the school is that now you have a bunch of Black and POC child actors who get to have their time in the sun. You have these young, incredibly talented kids who have speaking roles, probably one of their first speaking roles on a major TV show that actually became so popular and so beloved, which could really catapult their careers, and deservedly so, because a lot of these kids are just amazing. They're so funny, they're so talented, and they get these incredible scenes in the show, and it's just so heartening to see. This is what happens when you create a show for POC characters, is that you get to hire more POC actors of all different ages that we can see here, and that will benefit them hopefully in the future in terms of their career trajectory, especially when they're so talented like many of these kids are. So I love to see it all around. I love to see it all around. Also, just to give some love to the adults here as well, like the adult teachers, we have Quinta. As I said, she wrote this series, but she also stars in it as this kind of cute, naive teacher who hasn't fully grasped how hopeless the education system in America can be. She still has hope in her eyes, but she is supported by some very world-weary but still knowledgeable teachers like Lisa Ann Walters' character Melissa and Cheryl Lee Ralph's character Barbara. And we also have another newcomer, Gregory, who was portrayed by Tyler James Williams, also known as Chris from Everyone Hates Chris. But he was supposed to join the school as a head teacher, like he had studied for it, he was very qualified, he was ready to take on this challenge, but ultimately he could not, and he ended up being a supply teacher because the role was taken up by the legend, the icon Ava. Yes, Ava, who's portrayed by Miss Janelle James. Ava is a star. Ava is a VIP. Ava is like one of the most dislikable characters, but at the same time you can't help but love her. She's the Homelander of Abbott Elementary. Okay, so I've been sitting here praising a ton of amazing shows that came out this year so far, but now let's get into some of the smelly bad shows that we got this year. Honestly, there aren't many. Okay, most of the shows that I didn't love were meh, kind of mid shows, which we'll talk about in a second. But in terms of the actual bad shows, I don't really have many here because I don't like watching bad TV, like, you know what I mean? I don't like watching bad stuff, guys. We only have so many hours in a day, like why am I gonna waste it on something awful, even though I do have a fun time ranting about stuff. So first of all, on this very short list, we have Woke. Woke has a second season, inexplicably. This is kind of like a show that I would have expected would have one season and then we just kind of swiftly forget about it. Here's the thing, Woke isn't like the worst show ever. It deals with like this black guy who doesn't really understand like black issues. He's trying to be like a I don't see color type of person, and like why can't we all just get along type of person, but then he realizes that he can't do that because he's a black man in America. He's a trademark black man in America, so he has to get woke like really quickly, but he kind of goes about it the wrong way. And season 2, at least from what I saw in the first episode because I stopped watching, is trying to tackle that. And yeah, I think it's an interesting premise. I don't hate the show, but like I said, there's only so many hours in a day, like why am I going to waste it on a show that I don't love either? Second on this list is Killing Eve. Killing Eve season 4, like it wasn't bad. It wasn't, guys, please, it wasn't it wasn't actually bad, but it wasn't good either, was it? I mean, it should be in the meh pile if we're being honest, but I just felt this visceral hatred towards the ending of that show, and so that's why I feel like it deserves to be in the bad pile. It deserves to be in the bad pile, guys. I can't believe what they did to one of the most iconic lesbian couples on television. Yeah, it's in the bad pile. I'm so sorry. Everyone involved in this should burn. Like, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll feel differently at the end of the year, but so far I'm still not over it. I'm still not over it. And lastly, in the bad pile, we have the First Lady. I can't begin to express my disappointment for the First Lady. Ugh. I was so disappointed, guys. I was actually really looking forward to this show. I saw the cast. Speaking of Gillian Anderson, I saw the cast here. We have Gillian Anderson, Michelle Pfeiffer, and we have Viola Davis portraying 3 previous First Ladies. I was really excited for this, guys, but then I saw some of the tweets. I saw some tweets concerning Viola Davis's portrayal of Michelle Obama, and I was like, this, like, say it ain't so. Like, say it ain't so. It can't be real. It can't be. It can't be real. I literally just closed my eyes, was like, no, this can't be real. I'm gonna reserve judgment until I see the show myself. And then I did watch it, and I mean, it was slightly better when you had the kind of wider context of each scene, and, you know, being able to see how Michelle Obama is interpreted by Viola Davis in this show. It does make a little bit more sense, but not that much more. Not that much more, guys. I think Viola committed to certain facial expressions and mannerisms that you do see in Michelle Obama, but she committed to it to an extent that it became a caricature, and I think it was an unfortunate one, and given how much respect that Michelle Obama has amongst everyone, you know, a lot of people in the world, but in particular amongst black women, I just couldn't forgive I couldn't forgive Viola for this one. I'm so sorry. Love Viola, huge fan of Viola Davis here on this channel. I mean, you should know this by now, but her portrayal of Michelle Obama just wasn't it for me. I'm so sorry. It wasn't it. I will say though, when it comes to performances on the show, I do think that Gillian Anderson was doing a great job from what I saw. There was a lot of teeth acting though. She has some fake teeth here, but I would have to say that the best one of the trio would have to be Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer was knocking it out of the park from what I saw. I only watched the first 2 episodes, by the way. I couldn't go through the rest. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I only watched the first 2 episodes, but from what I saw, Michelle Pfeiffer was killing it. But aside from Viola Davis's portrayal of Michelle Obama, there were also other issues. I mean, we also had Barack Obama portrayed by the guy from The Handmaid's Tale. I don't think he was the best choice, even though visually he does look pretty similar. Like, I think just aesthetically it was a good casting choice, but I didn't like his interpretation of Barack Obama. Like, I just I wasn't a fan. I wasn't a fan. I don't think he's old enough as well. No, it didn't work for me, unfortunately. And also what I didn't love about the show was how it's kind of told in a non-linear way. The formatting was a little bit confusing. I wish they had just stuck to linear narratives, because they chose to tell the story in a non-linear fashion whilst also jumping from first lady to first lady. Like, I think if they wanted to do the non-linear storytelling, they should have just focused on each different first lady in various episodes, or if they wanted to jump from first lady to first lady, they would have done it in a linear fashion, so that the first few episodes focus on the beginning of their lives and their careers, and then we go on from there. Doing both just makes it quite confusing and jumbled, and it wasn't a very pleasant viewing experience. Okay, so now that we've gone through the good and the bad, it's time for the meh. It's time for like the mid shows that didn't really make a great impression on me, didn't really blow my mind, but they weren't the worst things ever either. Like, they're okay, like, you know, they're fine. I mean, these are varying degrees of meh, and I'll mention what my thoughts are briefly, but like, yeah, this is just a pile of okay, sure. First one up we have is a very meh show. It's The Tourist. I remember when this show was getting a little bit of heat, when people were like, yeah, Jamie Dornan is actually a good actor, guys. Like, you shouldn't just judge him off of 50 Shades. He's actually really good. You should watch The Tourist. That will prove that. I did watch The Tourist months afterwards, after the hype, and I have to say, like, it's like okay. It's okay. My problem with Jamie Dornan's character is that, you know, I was invested at the beginning. There were some twists and turns that occurred, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, because the character has amnesia. He's trying to figure out who he is, why he's in the middle of the Australian outback, like what actually went on here. Then as we go along in this season, you realize that the character that he is, or at least was like a despicable human being. He was the worst. He was the scum of the the little scum of the earth. And then you're like, well, how can I be invested in this man? I hate him. And not in a cute little Homelander way. Not in a cute I hate Homelander way, but in like, he's horrible. I think it's because it's rooted in reality, so it's not just some like superhero. Like, he's a drug trafficker. He's a drug trafficker who almost killed a woman to try and get out the precious drugs in her system because she was a drug mule. He cut her open, and regardless of whether or not she lived, he pulled out all of the drugs in her system. Like, he was scum. He was literal garbage, and they wanted me to still be invested in the character at the end, and I was like, no, sorry, The Tourist, I hate him now. Like, you've literally given me no choice but to despise this man. So yeah, that was my problem with the show. As soon as I found out how horrible he was in his past life, I was like, yeah, this isn't what the redemption arc that you're trying to achieve here isn't working on me. Sorry. I will say though, I did appreciate the fact that this was set in the Australian outback. I think it's a cool new setting for a show. I love to see it. You guys know how I love seeing different parts of the world be represented in TV, so that was fun for me. And also seeing various like actors in this show, actors that wouldn't really get starring roles usually in like a Hollywood production, I think was really good. I think that was a really unique experience for this series, seeing people who just looked like everyday people as opposed to, you know, TV stars from Hollywood that have been mass produced in their special little Hollywood factory. Although the exception to that was of course Jamie Dornan, who was the main star of the show. Baby steps, guys, baby steps. Okay, so the next mid show, the next mess show that we have is the Book of Boba Fett. I already did a whole review for this one, so I'm not going to go into it much, but yeah, it was pretty mid. Like, I would say that the show got better and better, but truly what I'm referring to is of course the 2 or 3 episodes where this show became The Mandalorian 2.5, and like, I personally love that. I needed that, okay, but it's kind of a shame to Boba Fett because he was definitely overshadowed in his own show. Like, I'll be real, the Boba Fett part of the Book of Boba Fett wasn't the most interesting part, I'm afraid. Okay, so next up on the list of mess shows from 2022, we're moving on to the Apple TV Plus girlies now. You know how HBO Max was featured in like the best, the creme de la creme? Yeah, Apple TV Plus has been pushing out some mid, some average, some okay TV shows this year, and one of those that stand out to me is the Essex Sub. Is anyone watching the Essex Sub? No, who am I kidding? None of you are watching. None of you are watching the Essex Sub. I'm the only one. Just indulge me for a second here. The show is so mid. The show is so boring. Listen. The show stars Claire Danes and Tom Hiddleston. And no prizes for guessing why I actually watched the show to begin with. Like, no prizes. There will be no reward for guessing why I watched the show in the first place. Of course it's for Tom Hiddleston. But even Tom Hiddleston can't get me to care about Essex Serpent. Like, even him, I do not care about this show at all. Like, the level of care and investment I have for this show is this much. This much. I'm so sick and tired of seeing these like Essex peasants from the Victorian era going on about some mythical serpent, and Tom Hiddleston's this like vicar or priest or something in the area, and he's supposed to be reassuring them that God is looking out for them, but they believe that this demon serpent is going around killing people. Like, I don't care. I literally do not care. This show did not make me care. It did not make me care whatsoever. Like, it's just so boring. Every single episode feels like it's the same thing over and over again, and I have zero investment in this. I don't care about a single character in this. Claire Danes is there, you know, and also inexplicably Tom Hiddleston's wife in this show looks exactly like Claire Danes. I remember when I saw the actress, I can't remember her name right now, but I saw her on the red carpet for the Met Gala, and I thought that was Claire Danes then. I was like, oh, it's Claire Danes. But then as I was flicking through the pictures, I saw Claire Danes, and I was like, oh, the other actress is just a lookalike, I guess. So the fact that they're both on this show was just kind of like a mystery to me. I guess it's supposed to suggest that like he has a type, that he found Claire Danes attractive because she looks just like his wife, I guess, but she's a more interesting version of his wife. Like, is that what the casting is supposed to suggest subliminally? I don't know, but it's just weird to me that both ladies look so similar, but they do have different personalities, and I wish I cared more, but I don't. And the next mid show that I checked out on Apple TV Plus was Slow Horses, and this series starred Gary Oldman and Jack Lowden and some other people, I guess. This was also just so mid. Here's the thing, Slow Horses kind of tricked me, because the first episode, especially the first 10 minutes of Slow Horses, is actually very interesting. Like, it's actually very investing. You have this major action sequence with Jack Lowden being this James Bond type character, and I was fully invested. I was like, oh, this is cool. Okay, Apple TV Plus, I see you. but then we never got that energy again. We never got that same energy again, at least not until like the very end, I guess, but even then it wasn't on the same level. So it was just disappointment from then on. Like, it was just, storyline was kind of dead. I mean, the message, I guess, was that you can't trust the secret services, like you can't trust MI6 or MI5, but like, yeah, we know. I know you can't trust MI5, of course you can't. And also, it's been renewed for a season 2 somehow. Like, I guess some people liked it, or maybe it was in the contract, like they had to have a season 2 in order for Gary Oldman to be bothered to sign on. I don't know, but overall, it was just like so forgettable, so meh. It wasn't the worst thing ever. There were some good performances, but overall, like, it had no lasting impact whatsoever. And I again suspect that I'm the only one who watched this show. And then lastly, for this video, we have yet another Apple TV Plus entry. I don't know if I said I only had 2, but turns out I have 3. I forgot about this third one, which just speaks to how meh, to how mid this show ended up being, but that is Raw. Remember Raw? Again, I may be the only person who actually watched it, but it was the Apple TV Plus anthology series that centered on these female characters, that was kind of like a commentary on being a woman in modern day society, but using these like quirky premises. So like Nicole Kidman, who's an executive producer on the show, I believe, in one episode she eats these like photos, like she eats she has this ability to eat photographs in order to relive the memories that the photos portray, and she's doing this unfortunately because her mother has dementia, and so she wants to kind of cherish the memories that she had with her mother and her family, and so she's eating these photographs in order to do so. So that was an interesting, bizarre premise. You also had the episode with Issa Rae where she was, I guess, invisible. She was literally invisible. She was this very highly acclaimed writer who finally got a TV show or movie deal, but the studio inevitably destroyed the entire concept of her book, which was a very personal story about her and her father, and you know, her experience being a young black girl and what happened to her father, which was an instance of horrible, atrocious police brutality. And they decided to create this like virtual reality experience where you could live out that memory that she had, that experience and trauma that she had. It was a horrible idea, but she was entirely invisible to the studio, you know, to the producers. And that was kind of a commentary, I guess, on Hollywood and how studios sometimes treat these creatives, especially when their stories become popular and monetizable. So yeah, overall there were some interesting premises here, but I do think that the issue stood with the execution. I just don't think that the execution was particularly great. You have another one with Betty Gilpin, who literally becomes a trophy wife. Like, she is a trophy in her own home. She has to sit on this shelf with her husband just kind of watching over her and appreciating her from a distance, but she loses her voice and autonomy in her own home. So again, there are interesting concepts with very relevant and interesting commentary there on, you know, what it means to be a woman in modern day society, but it's all in the execution. I felt like it felt more preachy than clever. I mean, we're looking at a TV landscape where we have shows like Atlanta and, you know, speaking of Issa Rae, Insecure, that do this kind of commentary so well, that when you have a show like this that is just so on the nose, so preachy, and there's no nuance there, it just pales in comparison. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on some of the best, worst and meh TV shows so far, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of these shows down in the comments below, and if you've watched any other shows from 2022 that you would actually recommend or not. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please be sure to subscribe to catch you videos coming up. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.